Thank you very much for keeping company with me on the show, The Marketplace. Now, let's start it all. And the Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, has charged the Ghana Revenue Authority, GRA, to, as a matter of urgency, develop a mobile app for citizens to use as a convenient way to file their tax returns. According to him, this will enhance voluntary tax payments among Ghanaians, as well as helping to reduce the cost in mobilizing funds. Speaking at the launch of the Tax and Good Governance Week in Accra, the Vice President also gave the Commissioner General of the GRA up to the end of April next year to ensure that this directive is implemented.
Administration Act of 2016 mandate eligible persons to file income tax returns with the Commissioner General not later than 4 months after the end of each year of assessment. This campaign is therefore meant to remind and educate all categories of persons on this civic requirement and encourage the general public to visit any of the offices of the Ghana Revenue Authority across the country and file their tax returns if they haven't already done so before the end of April 2018. The President, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, has directed that to set good examples, all ministers of state, government appointees, and public officials should ensure that they file their tax returns before the deadline of April 30th, 2018. During this program, GRA will mount tax clinics at specific places to assist citizens with filing of their tax returns as well as tax-related matters. The tax return forms have been modified to make it easier to fill. Arrangements are also being made to provide a more electronic system for filing returns in the very near future. In fact, Commissioner General, I would like to challenge you that by the time we get to next year, where we have to file our taxes by the end of April 30th, we want to see a mobile app which we can have on our phones and be able to file our taxes just on our mobile phones and pay them on our mobile apps without having to step into any office. And this is a challenge I'm setting for you to meet by the end of April next year so that we can get this done. I know you can meet it. I wish to emphasize that by complying and honoring our civic obligation to the state, citizens can better hold government and accountable and bring socioeconomic development to our communities.
Meanwhile, the Vice President has also used the opportunity to file his annual tax returns with the GRA. The Vice President reiterated the President's call for all appointees to file the tax returns before the April 30th deadline. In another development, the Ghana Revenue Authority says it is establishing tax clinics in public places for continued education on new tax policies. Officials say the move will enhance public awareness implementation, tax stamp and identification number policies. It follows public uproar about low awareness of the new tax policies, which is creating confusion between taxpayers and administrators. The authority embarked on a sensitization walk in Kumasi on Thursday, which also marks the Tax and Governance Week celebration. Prince Apia has more in this report.
Amma Jemfua sells Banku here at Asokwa in Kumasi.
I have heard of the TIN number, but haven't paid keen attention. The government should keep educating so we traders will understand.
This is the kind of sentiment that compelled the Ghana Revenue Authority to undertake this sensitization drive. The work started from the GRA office at Asokwa through KNUST, Atonsu, Jinyase, and back to Asokwa. Implementation of tax stamp and tax identification number regimes are at the center of the public education initiative. Michael Echampon is manager of the Asokwa Small Taxpayer Office.
In fact, as part of this Tax and Good Governance Week, God willing, from next week, we're going to have tax clinics. We're going to go out there where we have tax clinics at some vantage points in the metropolis, whereby we will go around with our vans, invite people who perhaps cannot even come to the office to have this thing registered, so that we can get closer to them and have them registered for the thing.
Assistant Commissioner for Ashanti, Samuel Sechidodu, encourages the public to demand tin from people they do business with.
So I really advise that people, when you are going for a lawyer to go to court, please take advantage of that. Ask your lawyer, has he got a tin number? Because I fear a situation where you get good judgment only for the other, your opponent to turn the case around, because your lawyer has no local standing in the court. If your lawyer hasn't got a tin number, what is he doing in court? And that's going to affect people. Our advice when you go to hospital, to tell a doctor, make sure your doctor has a tin. Make sure if you have an architect, put up your body, has a tin. If you have any, make sure, because as me, you're supposed to give evidence, you can't go to court, what happens to you? So to force everyone to go for the thing. You see, and banks, you can't even open a bank account.
Prince Apia reporting.
So let's still stay a little longer on taxes. And my colleague Ebenezer Sabuti witnessed the opening of the tax or the launch of the Tax and Good Governance Week celebration today, where the Vice President urged the GRA to implement an app, a mobile app, of course, to enhance payment of taxes. He's joined me here in the studio to tell us more about the event and what at all is the Good Governance Tax Week. What is it?
Okay, so it's just a program by the GRA to kind of create awareness of the need for us, you and I, to pay our taxes. It is, more like the tax campaign that was initiated last year, which helped the GRA mobilize some funds into its revenue target. So it's just a program, and they have so many, activities that are lined up in it for the week.
What are some of the activities?
So there will be quizzes among tertiary institutions. There will be, national quiz on GBC as well. Okay. And then some other events for education, and then also, street awareness creation for you and I to know that there's the need for us to pay our taxes. And if we fail to pay our taxes, there could be jail term for us.
So what are some of the other high points or the issues that came up at the event, apart from what the Vice President said?
Okay, one of the biggest, high point that came about over there was the call by the President to all government appointees and public servants to make sure that they file their tax returns before the end of April this year. That is before the end of this month. Okay. Yes, because according to him, leadership by example. So if the President himself has filed, the Vice President has filed, and as I was saying earlier, as you saw earlier, the Senior Minister has also filed, then it's left with you and I and the government.
But you were there. Did you take the opportunity to file?
I didn't file today, but I'll be filing somewhere next week. In fact, I've added it to my diary that immediately I get home, that's the plan, that I'm going to file my tax.
So what's the main importance for one to file his or her tax?
Okay, so it helps the government to, get the necessary revenue. It helps you to enjoy the necessary, government incentives that you are supposed to enjoy. The social amenities that we are supposed to be provided by the government. We get the health facilities, free education, one district, one factory, and all other projects that the government needs to implement. When we file our taxes, the government get the revenue to implement some of these, programs. And also, it helps the government to move beyond aid, the Ghana Beyond Aid agenda. You know, we cannot always depend on our donor partners to be giving us money. The money they give us is also their taxes. And it's about time we also pay ours so that we can use to finance, developmental projects of our country. We don't only have to depend on them to give us the money. So the whole project is just about you and I knowing that we have to pay our taxes. If we fail to do so, we are liable for jail term.
Thank you very much, Ebenezer, for that update. And my colleague, Ebenezer Sabuti, bringing us up to speed with other developments at the launch of the Tax and Good Governance Week. Still on taxes, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta says the revenue mobilization process embarked upon currently by the GRA would create about 5,000 jobs for the youth. He noted that these are part of efforts to create employment for the youth of the country. Ken Ofori-Atta made this known at the 5th Africa Think Tank Summit here in Accra. Bismarck Awusa has more.
The three-day summit, organized under the auspices of the African Capacity Building Foundation, brought together various think tanks across Africa. In a keynote address, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta noted that the GRA's current revenue mobilization process would engage the services of about 5,000 youth.
The Nation Builders Corps, which is a program which is 100,000 jobs to be created for tertiary school graduates to contribute to nation's development and gain valuable work experience by serving in short-term basis in modules such as the Revenue Ghana, which is to employ some 5,000 graduates to help me with revenue collection.
Executive Director of the Institute for Democratic Governance, IDEG, is Dr. Emmanuel Akwete.
We need to find ways of engaging the youth so that we can bridge the gap the gap between us. We are talking knowledge here. The youth are using modern technology, especially social media, to communicate, but a lot of opinions and all that. But how do we also bridge that gap between us and youth so that across the country, across the African continent, there's a Pan-African agenda to develop? And the think tanks are also going to look at how we become a vehicle for promoting Pan-Africanism and engagement between youth and their political leaders whom they elect, so that they will serve their interests greater. So we need an alliance and platforms for doing this.
The 5th Africa Think Tank Summit is under the theme Tackling Africa's Youth Unemployment Challenge, Innovative Solutions from the Think Tanks. Bismarck Awusa's report for Joy Business.
Let's now turn attention to other developments, and prices of petroleum products have finally been increased by over 2% at the pumps. This is a result of marginal increases in price of crude and other finished products on the international market. Let's give you a breakdown of these adjustments and how your disposable incomes could be affected.
Increases coming after an earlier projection by Joy Business that prices would increase by up to 4% at the pumps this week. Checks show that most of the big players in the industry like Total, Shell and Allied have all adjusted their prices within or slightly above 2%. So following this adjustment, a litre of petrol is now being sold around 4 cedis 67 pesos. Now these adjustments will translate into a gallon of petrol being sold at a little over 21 cedis, up from 20 cedis 25 pesos. This means that if you were using 5 gallons every week, then your budget has gone up from 101 cedis to 125 cedis 5 pesos. A gallon of diesel is also going to be sold at around 125 cedis 5 pesos. From these calculations, it's clear that your budget for petroleum purchases have gone up. The developments could also lead to an increase in cost of living and a possible push by driver unions for increase in transport fares.
It's live on the marketplace. Now, tomorrow, the 7th of April, is World Health Day. Stakeholders across the globe are calling for massive investments and private sector participation in the industry of healthcare. Here in Ghana, reports of poor access to healthcare facilities and already exhausted health facilities continue to make healthcare delivery a huge challenge. The celebration is under the theme Universal Health Coverage, Everyone, Everywhere. Here are some high points of the day. That was a piece of information on World Health Day, which is celebrated tomorrow globally. Now, 250 youth in Kumasi are to undergo skills training under the entrepreneurship program by Sinapiaba Savings and Loans. Over 2,000 people in 7 regions of the country have already benefited from the initiative since its inception in 2003. It is designed to respond to employment challenges of vulnerable girls in the society. Prince Apia has more.
The Youth Apprenticeship Program, YAP, is an initiative of Snap Yaba Trust designed to respond to both employment and health needs of vulnerable people. Over 2,000 people in 7 regions of the country have benefited from the initiative since its inception in 2003. The new project, YAP Kumasi, was launched at the Jubilee Park. It is to benefit a number of 250 youth across the Kumasi metropolis under the tutelage of qualified local trade masters. Beneficiaries for this year's program will over 3 years learn hairdressing, dressmaking, masonry, welding, auto mechanic and electrical engineering, catering and aluminium fabrication. Margaret Owusu-Asare is manager for the YAP program.
We have our clients. Snap Yaba has numerous clients, and we realize that most of the clients are not able to help their children to complete school. And even those who want to go into apprentice training, what's the problem? So we said, oh, why don't we help our clients? That's why we started this. And now it's not only our clients, everybody who wants to come, we admit. In fact, it is very joyous. We have trade masters now who are here. We trained, and we are now giving them people to train. Very, very interesting, exciting.
So how many people have
The challenges are that parents are not supervising them, they are not monitoring them, so they will have to feed themselves. And when a girl, especially the girls want to feed themselves, they go to boys and they get pregnant. So those are the challenges. If parents are doing their work well, we will have a successful program. But even in this, for example, in the Mahinkro, I picked 100 and 81 were able to complete, so it's not bad.
Mrs. Owusu-Asare says the program will be expanded due to the sponsorship available. What does the future looks like for the YAP project?
Now that we have donors who are helping us, we are going to go giddy. At first, we do once a year, but now we're able to do 2, 3 because we have people who are helping us financially. So we are going to support more.
Tell us about the sponsorship.
Yeah, the sponsorship, we have, the lady who talk. We have donors who, I don't know how they got to know our program, who help us. So if we are picking 100, they say, okay, we'll support 50. You also take 50. That's how they support us.
How much is going into it?
I'm telling you, by the time one person completes, it's more than 5,000 Ghana. One person. By the time one person completes, more than 5,000 Ghana. Because of the training that we do, we have to pay all our facilitators. If you do one training, you have more than 10 facilitators, because every trade will have one facilitator. Even if one person, for example, if the whole group, you have only one plumber, we will get NVTR person to train the person, that plumber, and we pay the person. So the facilitation is costing us, but it's very important.
Prince Apia reporting.
Now, from her days as Miss Ghana to politics and now to palm oil business, we bring you the story of Brigitte Jobegonuku and how she's empowering women through her palm oil business. This week on the Joy Business Van, we went to the Volta region to see how Brigitte does it. Here's a repeat of the Joy Business Van.
Ago, she simply stopped traffic and was drop-dead gorgeous on the runway. She charmed the nation with her beauty and brains to win the crown in the 1991 Miss Ghana pageant. Then she shot into the limelight again in 2016 as the vice presidential candidate for the Progressive People's Party. Meet Brigitte Jobegonuku. Perhaps with a penchant for being in the limelight, Brigitte is at it again. This time, getting her hands soiled with red oil. She's in her kitchen with empty bottles and a bowl full of palm oil under the brand name Vey Flavor. How did she get to this? Let's rewind the process and see how it all starts in Vey. Noted for not just its beautiful and breathtaking scenery, the Vey traditional area is also rich in vegetation. This is where Brigitte gets her palm oil, also known as Jomi, here in the Volta region. These are women of Vey Kalung, one of the villages in Vey, where women produce palm oil and supply to Brigitte. But why Jomi? I asked this beauty queen, and she explained her passion for this greasy business.
My mother since my infancy, would not buy oil from Accra, from the city. She used to say the oil was adulterated. So she would always bring her jomi from this area. At the time, I thought she was very fussy, but as I grew up, I started to know the difference between just regular red oil and jomi. And so I would wait for her to bring me oil from the village as well, and that was the only oil I ate. And a couple of times I was in a friend's office when someone called to ask for palm oil. So my friend asked me, he said, you know, this is the second time you've been here and somebody has called to ask to buy for palm oil. Don't you want to start selling it? Of course, like you said, I looked at myself and I said,
a beauty queen.
Look at me. Do I look like, in fact, those were my very words. Look at me. Do I look like a palm oil seller?
In other parts of the world like Malaysia, palm oil is a major contributor to its national economy, contributing about $15 billion annually. It's not only used for cooking purposes, but also for cosmetics, among other things. Palm oil production may not be such a huge contributor to the Ghanaian GDP, but plays an important role in many Ghanaian dishes. Bridget says she feels obliged to bring quality red oil to homes.
These people have inherited this art of producing this jomi from their mothers and their mothers' mothers, and it's been their trade for years. But they are stuck in this place, and not many people know about them,
what they're doing,
and what good product it is they are producing. So I think it's an avenue for me to also promote what they do.
About 10 women produce and sell their palm oil to Bridget. Individually, each woman produces about 10 to 15 kilograms of oil. Together, they are able to produce more at a time to meet Bridget's demands. Darosa, leader of the women, tells me how Bridget's method of buying from them has saved their businesses.
In the past, we were not getting market for the oil we produce. But now, with the help of Bridget, we are able to sell what we produce quickly and invest in more.
Each woman brings her pan full of palm fruits to Darosa's house, and together they produce. I learned that the sky is beneath the limit for Bridget, as she shares her plan of opening a factory to help the women produce more.
So we are looking at actually putting up a little factory for them to be able to process, to mechanize, not so much, because the manual also
has its own feel.
Yes, its own flavor.
Yeah.
But yes, there are certain labor-intensive parts that can be mechanized for them to be able to produce more.
3 years and counting, and Bridget continues to bring smiles on the faces of women. When she is not doing her palm oil business, Bridget is busy with her NGO, Mentoring Women Ghana, by supporting the personal growth of young women through mentoring by accomplished women. To send Ghana to every corner of the globe is Bridget's plan, and she intends to do that with Vey Flavor.
On the shelves in the ethnic stores in the West, in the US, in London, in Germany, wherever you find Ghanaians who eat jomi and know good jomi, it will be there. It will be the brand name. People won't say they want jomi anymore. People will say they want Vey Flavor.
So you guess where the van is heading to next. Keep watching Joy Business, especially on Wednesdays, where we'll bring you another edition of the Joy Business Van. And on that note, we wrap up this afternoon's edition of the Marketplace. It's been great having you on board and keeping you company throughout the week with business headlines. My name is Emmanuel Apwaji. Have a great weekend.